Our agent Marty Baum said, look, if you guys want to just go make a film and be totally left alone, there are two new guys in town.
Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus were the heavyweights. They were the George Foremans and the Muhammad Alis of the indie market.
Canon is the only company who loves cinema. Cinema is our life.
Yoram Globus was the businessman behind the movie making.
Where is my money? You promise and promise and promise and you're not paying.
Menachem Golan was the movie maker.
Menachem, I cannot do it. I'm dying. He said, do it and then die.
They were considered schlockmeisters.
It's schlock, but they sure do make a lot of it.
The name of the game is to do, not just to blah, 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 blah. Talk about it.
At the end of the movie, I had tears in my eyes. And Menachem, he says, aha, I got you. I was crying because I saw my career going down the toilet and I didn't know what I was going to do next. It was almost like a bowel movement. You make a movie, it comes out, you flush it, and you move on to another one.
It's time for Movie Month. It is my third annual Movie Month, in which I will be watching 30 movies in 30 days, and I'll either hate them or give them praise. So I just watched the coolest documentary. I heard about it. I think I saw it on some movie website a while ago. Then my brother told me about it. Said you should watch it because it's really interesting and just crazy. If you have Netflix, if you are a child of the 70s, 80s, it doesn't even matter about that really. But if you are a fan of movies, fan of the movie business, and not opposed to bad, cheaply made movies, I recommend you see this movie. It's called Electric Boogaloo, The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. Of course, you know this by now because you've downloaded this episode. But what is this? It's basically a documentary about these two cousins who came from Israel, making movies over in Israel, and trying to make their way in the Hollywood system. By creating lots and lots of low-budget, bad movies, and then selling the hell out of them, getting distribution, getting money, then using that money to make more movies. Sometimes they'd have movie posters and movie titles without a movie or a script being made, and they'd sell a movie just on that. Then they'd grab some guys and say, okay, go make this movie. Now, they made a ton of movies that you never have heard of. Little movies, bad, terrible, action movies, rip-offs of other movies. But they've also made movies that you may have heard of, including the title of this movie, which was Electric Boogaloo. Yes, they made Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. With Chuck Norris, they made Missing in Action and Missing in Action 2. With Dolph Lundgren, they made the Masters of the Freaking Universe. Yes, the He-Man movie that was terrible, they made that. With Stallone, they made two classic Stallone movies. Cobra, go ahead, I don't shop here. That really wasn't talked about in this movie. But the one that was talked about was, let's make a movie about a father, a son, and arm wrestling. And that was, and even how that movie got made was interesting. They took movie franchises and created sequels. They created Death Wish 2, 3, 4. Did they make Death Wish 5? I don't even know. They took Superman and made Superman, the worst Superman movie ever, Superman 4. They took Texas Chainsaw Massacre and created Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. They've done so many movies, bad movies, that you may have heard of. And I don't know if there's a good movie like listed in there. Like they made a lot of like sexploitation, like really over the top, like Lady Chatterley's Lover and other like what the hell's the other one? Oh, The Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood. I was listening to How Did This Get Made, and they did a whole episode on the Apple, and that was shown, in this movie. It was featured during this movie. It was Ninja 2. No, wait, what was it? The Last American Virgin. These movies. American Ninja. Missing in Action 2. Yes, of course, I said all the Death Wish movies. Revenge of the Ninja, Enter the Ninja, American Ninja. Do you remember, everyone knows Indiana Jones. Do you remember the bad Alan Quatermain movies? Or the King Solomon's Mine and Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold? Yeah, oh yeah, they did that. I remember being a kid and seeing the trailer for Invaders from Mars and being nervous, like scared of that movie. Yeah, they made that. It was terrible. They also wanted to make a movie called Masters of the Universe 2. They didn't really discuss this in the movie, but I read about this, that Masters of the Universe 2 was going to be made. It fell through, and so they took some of the things from that and created Cyborg, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. They made a terrible Journey of the Center of the Universe where they lost funding and had to cut a bunch of special effects. It's so interesting, and these guys were just like businessmen who just thought they were doing good. They were delusional, but they were totally they loved cinema, but I think they loved the idea of making movies more than they liked the idea of making good movies. The coolest, one of the most interesting parts is at one point the cousins have a falling out, and they have two competing movie companies, and they both are racing to get a movie based on the Lambada out at the same time. So if you remember, in is it the late 80s or early 90s, or it might have even been 1990, there were two Lambada movies. That's because of these two guys trying to race each other to the box office, and they ended up taking the movie coming out at the exact same time, and they basically, split the difference, and both made a lot less money. I don't think they would have made great money anyway. And my second favorite, and I don't want to spoil things, but this movie's a couple of years old, but my one of my favorite parts is the creators of this documentary approached these cousins to be in it. They declined, then announced that they were making their own documentary about themselves, and then they had that one come out before this one. So that's the kind of guy these guys were. They're like, we'll do it ourselves, we'll do it better. Brett Ratner produced this. Usually I say Brett Ratner, but he only produced it. He didn't direct it. It was created by or directed by a Australian documentarian who this one's called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. He has another documentary called Not Quite Hollywood: The Wild Untold Story of Oddsploitation, which is Australian movies. So he likes that wild untold story idea. It's short. It's like a little over an hour and a half, I think. And it's just, if you remember some of these movies, and I remember working at a video store and you see these movies and you go, how do these movies get created? And who's making these movies and how are they coming out? And if it's a bad movie and a bad action movie, chances are these guys had something to do with it, especially in the 80s. Breaking 2, just the idea of how they made Breaking 2. Hercules, starring Lou Ferrigno. Barfly looked like it was supposed to be an artsy type movie starring Mickey Rourke. And some of these, they would have been better movies if they had more money put into them, and probably. And look, when I was a kid, I loved Over the Top. I remember they had Over the Top toys. It didn't quite catch on like Rocky or Rambo, but Going Bananas. They were going to take the orangutan from Every Which Way But Loose and have it star in a movie with a kid. That didn't quite work out, so they put a little person in a monkey suit and had that monkey talking at some point. Pretty interesting. And if you're a cinephile, you like movies, or you just like a good documentary on some real interesting stuff and how these guys are basically self-made, but then also self-destructive. And when you look at the Superman 4 special effects, I mean, how could you regress? It was a real interesting watch, and I recommend it. And, that's really all I have to say. Again, the movie's called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. If you just search Canon with 2 N's, 3 N's, I guess, Cannon, Canon Films documentary, you'll find it. It's out there, and it's on Netflix, and I recommend it tremendously, because it's a lot of fun. This might not be my last documentary. There's a couple more that I want to see. One of them is on Netflix now, so hopefully I'll see that again. I think this is the first documentary I've done in 2 years. A couple years ago, I watched The Story of Death, which is the like a punk metal African American punk band, hard rock band. Really cool. I don't know if that's still on Netflix, but that was a really cool movie too. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of Netflix, is that they have these little documentaries that, you know, they're little movies I might not watch, movies that I don't know that greatly, but these small documentaries that are, you know, talking about subjects that interest me. That's what's great with Netflix. I'm rambling now. My lunch break is over, so I'm going to go back to work. And yeah, that's it. So day 14 in the books. Pretty exciting. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at Geek Mentality. You can find the website at fansnotexperts.com. We're at facebook.com/fansnotexperts, and on Twitter at fansnotexperts. You can find us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/FNE Movie Month. Has the first batch of movies. And soundcloud.com/FNE Movie Month 2 has the next batch of movies, starting with day 12. You know, really the easiest way to find all of this is just go to fans.experts.com. But if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, you can search the hashtag FNE Movie Month. Thank you for listening. I want to go watch like a Chuck Norris movie right now. For some reason, it's just, and a Charles Bronson movie. Absolutely. And that's it. You can play my music now. I'm gone. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe, 'cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode. Fans Not Experts.